schedule. I'm Mark James, happy to be joined by Davey Hamilton. We'll bring Alex Wolf and Joel Sebastianelli in from pit road momentarily. And Davey Hamilton, interesting day yesterday. Some issues with the surface, and as we predicted, much like we saw at Detroit, a work in progress overnight. The NTT IndyCar Series notified teams that they made small surface repairs at the apex of turn number 9. Cars, quite frankly, were hitting the bumps through that area and getting all four wheels off the ground at times.
Yeah, and Mark, that's such a narrow area through that turn. I mean, there's not much room on either side of that corner other than the hard wall that separates one side of the track from the other. And boy, all four tires up in the air. These guys having a hard time controlling. Fortunately, nobody hit the wall in that area, but it was very rough. That seemed like this track's bumpy. We know that, but we know that coming in. But we expect where they repave that it's going to be smooth. I think the asphalt, the tarmac part's smooth. It's just where there was a drain grate there that just became an issue. And I thought, hopefully they have it fixed for today.
You think at some point moving forward, Davey, I saw a lot of, for lack of a better term, noise, input, whatever you want to call it, on social media. There are those, both, within the confines of the series and those on the outside that think maybe moving forward, now that the car counter is such to where they're up to 27, that maybe they might investigate going into next year and years moving forward, some sort of a readjustment to pit road to kind of fix some of the situations that have occurred through 9, 10, and 11 now?
Yeah. One thing you have to remember, yes, for one, yes, I think that's a situation that needs to be, looked at. But then you have to remember this: we're on streets, we're on the city streets here in Toronto, and it's hard to change a lot of things. There's permanent buildings, there's parking, there's landscape, there's a lot of things that go into this that sometimes makes it very, very difficult to find that certain area to where pit lane could be a little bit more friendly and a little bit better for everybody. I mean, for especially these teams and drivers, very challenging the way it is right now. It used to be on driver's right, Mark, and I think it was really good when it was on driver's right. But right now, unless you come here to this facility with it all tore down, nothing set up, and see what you're trying to deal with on driver's right. I know there's a new Hotel X is built there, and I see a lot of landscape and some things there that could be difficult to do.
As we talked about yesterday, some of the drivers and some of their team principals expressing some frustration over some of the changes that occurred both, naturally because of the weather and because of repaving in some areas. But one of the guys that we talked to that said it was fine, the old adage is the same for everybody. That's the comment you normally get for a guy that's happy, and Romain Grosjean was second quick yesterday, so he didn't seem to have too much of a problem with it.
Yeah, when you're fast and you find a racetrack that fits your style and you have the speed, you're definitely going to like it no matter what. And, I've been to a lot of racetracks where there were some certain challenges that some guys couldn't overcome, but it was good for you, and you just wanted to practice in, so you felt like you had a little bit of an advantage over the competitors going into the event. And I'm watching right now. Does look a lot better through turn 9. They did a great job, Mark, fixing that. I just watched 2 cars go through there. They look straight, they look smooth, and I think a much better opportunity for the drivers not to be in trouble in that area today.
All in all, a good start for the weekend at Reading Autosport. Of course, Michael, a 7-time winner here as a driver. Kyle Kirkwood was P1, Davey. He got the 1-minute range at 60.8075. Romain Grosjean, as we said, was just behind him. Felix Rosenqvist was third fast. Colton Herta fourth quick. So a good start for Andretti Autosport to the weekend.
Yeah, really, really was. I mean, that Michael's history here just speaks for itself on how he really, how a driver enjoys a certain racetrack and has a certain style for that facility. And Michael had that here, and now seems to be transferring on to his team and his drivers. So, this is a short racetrack. It's not even 2 miles in length, Mark. It's very narrow, but it has 2 fast straightaways with 2 really great passing zones. That makes this track so exciting and so much fun to drive and to watch. So it's going to be the same for everybody, I'd say, but watch out for turns 1 and turn 3. That's where all the action is going to happen this weekend.
1 hour to get this 45-minute session in, and that is it. Before we go qualifying a little bit later on today, Mother Nature may have an impact on the proceedings. Let's get more on the current conditions here in Toronto as we head to pit road. Welcome in Joel Sebastianelli.
Thanks, Mark. You said that this is kind of a tough nut to crack. It might get even tougher if the weather stays like this. There are light raindrops that are falling on our head down here. Not enough to stain the pavement yet. Everybody on track is out on dry weather tires, but if you're looking at the onboard cameras, it's enough that it's showing up. Slight drizzle on these camera lenses. Overcast weather so far this morning. Ambient temperature 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 degrees Celsius. Track temperature 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius, and that track temperature consistent everywhere around the track. Only a variable of about 2 to 3 degrees from corner to corner and straight to straight. The edge of this system is what's hitting us from looking at the radar, although it appears as though in about 15 minutes we may get head on by another bubble. I only pretend to be a meteorologist down here. I don't know how heavy it'll be, but this is the kind of weather that makes you think, should I bring a jacket? A couple of umbrellas going up in the grandstands right now, but again, not enough that it seems to be affecting the track, Mark.
Thanks, Joel. Look forward to having you with us throughout the course of the weekend. We mentioned Kyle Kirkwood, Roman Grosjean, Rosenqvist, Colton Herta. The four fastest yesterday. Scott McLaughlin was fifth quick. Then Marcus Ericsson, Alexander Rossi, Pato Award, Joseph Newgarden, and Will Power the top 10. Tom Blomqvist is subbing for Simon Pagenaud this weekend, Davey. And, boy, he got out of the car yesterday, was scratching his head a little bit. And he said that, boy, this is his hardest thing he's ever done. He was 26th quick, but I'll tell you what, the guy is an accomplished racer for sure, and anticipate him getting up to speed pretty quickly this weekend.
Well, one thing that I expected him to be like 26 in the bottom of the charts, no question about it. He's been thrown to the wolves, so to speak. This is a very challenging track. Cars he hasn't been in before. A track he's never even drove around before. So you can only expect so much, but I'll be really honest, when I looked at the times and how close he was to the competitors in front of him, pretty impressive. I mean, he was his times are right in the game. I mean, he picks up that, half second, 3/4 of a second. He's going to be mid-pack. So when you think about that, I know it's a lot when it comes to IndyCar and our series. That's a lot of time. But 1001, there's 1 second. I mean, that's how close he is to this field. So good job by him. I think he's going to learn a little bit more today. I expect times to be a little quicker today. It's all dependent on the rain. They are already in that 60-second bracket without Kirkwood pretty much backing up his time from yesterday at a 60.81. So I expect most of the drivers to get down to that area.
And we have 1 hour to get this 45-minute practice session in before we go qualifying at 2:50 later on today. And again, Davey, for those that are somewhat new to the series, you hear conversations about alternates and primary tires. They had one opportunity to work with the alternates, and that was during the practice session yesterday. Everybody going to be on the primaries for this session today.
Yeah, that's correct. And I still wonder why they do that, being that they're going to qualify today on the softer compound tire, the alternate tire. So I always thought, well, shouldn't you run the alternate right before you get ready to go qualify so you have a little better idea what the track is and what your car's going to do? But I guess I missed out on that meeting why they do it the day before. But it is what it is. You're right, Mark. They're going to be on the race tire, basically, or the standard sidewall tire. But when this session's over, they come out for qualifying, they're going to have that softer green sidewall alternate tire on for high speeds.
We'll talk more about that tire situation and how those are distributed with those practice sessions in just a minute. But first, let's get a note from Alex Wolf. Let's welcome him to pit road. And Alex, welcome to Toronto. Kyle Kirkwood, fastest yesterday, and looks like he has the pace again today.
Oh, great to be here in Toronto, and yes, down in the 27 pit for the Auto Nation Honda for Kyle Kirkwood. Right now they're taking a look at those primary black tires. They're now removing the left front and giving that car a once-over. They had some mirrors on some long poles under, probably checking out to see if there's any scuff marks, checking the ride height, especially after some of those changes on the course overnight after yesterday's practice session. But right now, Kyle Kirkwood, while they work around every corner of his Honda, and is calmly sitting behind the driver's seat at the steering wheel. He's got the tablet looking at some of the data, including the timing and scoring, so he's patiently waiting while they're cooling things off with the blowers before he heads back out onto the streets of Toronto.
Felix Rosenqvist continues to be fast. Among the four fastest yesterday, as we told you, David Malukas with a solid run, best finish on a road and street course for Dale Coyne Racing during his tenure there. That was recently at Mid-Ohio with that sixth-place finish. He is currently third third quick, Graham Rahal fourth quick, Lundgaard is fifth quick. Okay, Davey, back to the discussion about tires. You get 6 sets of primary, 4 sets of alternates to be used during the event weekend. Now, again, rookie drivers, we see that first session, which is an hour and 15-minute window. They have about an hour, though. Most teams take about 50 minutes of that don't have a rookie. Teams must use a set of primaries and a set of new sticker alternate tires for at least 2 laps in the race. Given all of that, maybe the series is helping out with a little bit of tire management, maybe? Is that why that, they combine the alternates? Because you got to wonder how often, how many teams would turn a lot of laps on alternates in this session anyway?
Yeah, that's right. The alternate tire is, that's the trick tire. That's the one that puts the strategy into the race, and that's the reason that that they keep those. They're faster, but you got to use a strategy. Now they give you less, but what happens in qualifying, Mark? Everybody's going to run a sticker set for first round. They're going to run a sticker set for the second round, and then the third round they don't have a sticker set left because if they have to start this race on a new set of stickers of this alternate tire. Now, one thing for the teams that don't make the end of round one or into the next round, they will have an extra set of these softer compound tires that gives them a little bit of advantage during the race to put that softer sidewall tire on and the alternate tire just to try to use strategy to their point. They're farther back in the pack. They have to do some strategy to try to get back to the front.
Yeah, and of course we heard Alex Palou and Barry Wanzer talk about yesterday because of the situation that unfolded with a puncture. His session ended about 8 minutes early, and that was a tire management issue. Let's go back to pit road, check in with Joel Sebastianelli.
Thank you, Mark. 105 starts in IndyCar for Connor Daly. You start this weekend on the timing stand with Meyer Shank Racing, helping out Tom Blomqvist. What exactly are you doing with the headset to help this team?
Well, I mean, honestly, Tom's been thrust into the deep end here for sure, and I've known Tom a long time. Good friend of mine from when we raced in Europe, so happy to help because this team obviously wants to keep me around and keep me ready to go for whatever is necessary as well. And we just always think about Simon, and this is obviously his car, so we can't wait to see him back. But this team operates at a very high level, and it's great to just be here in general to help if I can. Because they've helped me and been really good to me as well.
Well, relationships in racing are huge, right? The fact that you guys go back so long, how does that help you and him do what you guys need to do?
Well, I mean, Tom's a professional, right? So he knows what he's doing, but this series is so difficult, and these cars physically are so challenging to get in and drive immediately. It's just about doing all the laps, I would say, for this weekend. There's no one is expecting him to be a superhero, you know what I mean? It's a tough series to jump in. We've seen it time and time again, but he's obviously got a lot of trophies for this team, so he's going to do a great job. And if I can be here of any help at all, even if it's sprinkling or sunny like it is right now, I'm happy to help if I can.
Yeah. By the way, the sun did come out, and we're still feeling raindrops down here. You know what it's like to be thrust into the deep end. What is the hardest challenge for him?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this brings me back to like 2018. I jumped in here for Harding Racing, and I wasn't full-time in 2018, and it was kind of similar weather conditions. Like, we put it in the Fast 12, sort of rain, sort of dry, and that was a wild weekend. But, man, by the end of that race, I was destroyed because it's so hard to jump in at a place like Toronto. This place is bumpy. It's unforgiving. It's super aggressive. So it's definitely no easy task. And I really wish people could understand how tough this series is, how hard these cars are to drive compared to, let's say, anything else kind of out there on the racing spectrum. So it's cool to see him out here getting the experience, and I think it's going to be a great race overall.
Tom told us yesterday, Connor, he had to learn this track on YouTube. When you have to do that instead of a simulator, how challenging is that? How does that change the way you prepare?
Well, I mean, you can get as many ideas of it as you want, but until you actually go out there and feel it yourself, feel it through the seat, feel it through the steering wheel, you just have no idea. You can think about as many scenarios as you want. You can overanalyze things. You can think how the track's going to feel, but until you get that first run in, like overnight, he slept on it, and he's going to be way better today already because you just get that, your mind accepts what the track has given you, and now you can take it to another level. So it's a challenge no matter what, and a street course where there's no testing and people just show up here, that's why IndyCar racing is so challenging.
Look, I know you've shown a willingness to do anything, and you've got to have helmet will travel mentality. Have you had conversations about what your future may be at Iowa or anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm here and ready to go if necessary, and Iowa's a track that I've had some success at, and I understand very well, and I'm sure that if necessary, I'll be ready to do the job. So we'll see what happens, but we take it in life is one day at a time. If I told you how much has been going on in my life over the last 2 weeks, day to day, and the amount of random stuff that has come up on my plate, which you'll see eventually, but it's just like, this is kind of crazy, Mid-Ohio IndyCar, truck racing Mid-Ohio. Now we're here, and then maybe next weekend, and then maybe there's another series. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So, it's fun, but it's also a little bit chaotic.
We don't even know what the weather's going to do. Hey, Connor Daly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That was all spoken like a veteran, Davey Hamilton, and a tremendous insight and very forthright, very open and honest, and really great stuff with Joel and Connor Daly.
Yeah, that's right. And one thing with Connor, I mean, he knows what he's up against. He knows how challenging this series is. Really good insight on, a driver in these current cars and what it takes to be fast and what it takes to be physically and mentally fit to be, competitive in this series. So it's interesting to, Connor's in a tough situation. We've know that for this year, but it's good the phone's ringing. We'll find out, as he said, that there's a lot of different series and opportunities that have came up. Matter of fact, he's even going to jump in a two-seater and do two-seater rides this afternoon with us, Mark. So that's a driver that's definitely not too big for the sport. He's willing to do anything he has to stay behind a wheel, and hats off to him. Something good to come up for him for sure.
And again, Simon Pagenaud was not medically cleared this weekend. That's why Bloomquist is in the car. He would not be available, for what we understand, next weekend. So if Simon is not able to go, then I think it makes sense that Connor Daly would be the choice to run the doubleheader in Iowa next weekend, Davey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's the first guy. Unless he sat on the pole there. I remember talking to Connor early on at Iowa, and he goes, "Man, I don't know about this track. It's not because it's as Cheever said a long time ago, these short tracks like a jet fighter in a gymnasium, and that's exactly what Iowa is like. It's so fast, and that 7/8 mile track, and you're cutting laps just lightning fast, and it's challenging. It has some bumps, and they get winter there too, so it's not just a smooth, super smooth racetrack. You got to deal with bumps there as well. But then he got on the center of the pole, and he got comfortable with that racetrack, and was starting to be really competitive there. So I think he's excited. He wants to get back in these cars, and that's another opportunity. And I would say for sure, if Simon doesn't get released, I mean, Connor's going to be the guy to be in that car. And, haven't spoke to Simon this week, but he seems to be doing great. I think he maybe just has a little bit of a vertigo issue, maybe, or just they're not quite ready to release him. But I'll assure you that he'll be on simulators and doing all he can to try to get back up to speed.
26 minutes remaining in the session. Kyle Kirkwood continues P1, then Dixon, Grosjean, Rosenquist, and Malukas your top 5. Ray Hall, Newgarden, Power, Lundgaard, and Castro Neves the top 10. While we were visiting with Connor Daly, Davey, we had a look at the left rear of Lundgaard's number 45 machine, and it looks like that he paid a visit to the outside retaining wall because that Firestone logo was all but gone.
Yeah, it looks like turn 8, as we see another car going off in turn 8 right now. That's Pato Award. No, I'm sorry, he's in turn 3. It was that he went off, and Pato's coming back on. But Lundgaard, you're right, turn 8 just scuffed that left rear wheel coming off that corner. I mean, that's right where the timeline is, Mark, to where these drivers want to get to that corner. It's the last corner before the actual timeline to where they get, the scoring and timing scoring clocks them. So just tried a little bit too hard, scuffed that wheel. Didn't look like it hurt anything, even the wheel, but they'll replace that and get it back on his way.
I remember watching Ari Leyendijk several years ago, Davey, when I was out in turn 3 calling the action from out there. He did a 360 in a pace car going into turn number 3.
Yeah, well, Ari likes to keep it exciting for us. I think it was raining that day, and he maybe overdrove it a bit, and I could relate. Rain, and that's another thing with rain as we talk. Is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? Rain is a huge challenge for these drivers. Some drivers love it, some don't, and it's just something that I think coming from Europe, a lot of these drivers that come from Europe, it rains a lot over there, so they race in the rain. They're used to racing in the rain, and they really excel because it's a whole different art. And I think we've seen that in NASCAR or anything that's in Chicago where these drivers aren't used to it. And what you have to do is stay out of the line. You stay offline. You don't want to get where that rubber is because the water on top of that rubber is like ice. I find that out in Ohio, and it's just a whole different mindset and technique. So for me, I always hope it doesn't rain. Let's put it that way, Mark. But there are some very talented rain drivers in this field.
Well, but if you're the leader, or you're in the first couple of rows, I think you're okay with driving in rain. But if you're starting in row 8 or 9, I don't think you want any part of driving.
Yeah, you don't want any part you can't see. You're trying to stay offline, and that's sometimes not easy, especially on these street and road courses where you're going from left to right all the time anyway. So staying offline, you have to cross that rubber at some point, and if it's wet and slick, it's that big more of a challenge that we see Rosenquist actually go off the same place Pato O'Ward did down in turn 3. He gets spins around, gets right back on track, gets going.
And again, Felix was fast yesterday, 3rd quick, and is 7th quick currently in the session. So it's Kirkwood, Herta, Dixon, O'Ward, and Grosjean the top 5. Ray Hall, Rosenquist, Lundgaard, David Malukas, and Joseph Newgarden. Will Power 11th. Scott McLaughlin is 12th. So for now, the Penske trio run together, 10th, 11th, and 12th quick. Elio Castroneves is 13th. Devlin DiFrancesco is 14th. 15th is Callum Ilott. 16th, Rinus VeeKay. 17th, Alexander Rossi. Jack Harvey, 18th. Ryan Hunter-Reay, 19th. Marcus Armstrong, 20th. Alex Palou, 21st. Canapino, 22nd. Ferrucci, 23rd. Peterson, 24th. Ericsson, 25th. Bloomquist, 26th. And Sting Ray Robb is 27th. Again, don't forget to join us a little bit later on this afternoon. 2:50 Eastern time as we get set to go qualifying. Davey, so far so good in terms of the repairs that were made to the apex at turn number 9. Some difficulties there, but it looks like all in all the repairs were effective. Makes that much smoother through there. And if there's a problem spot now, it's the one that seems to be a problem spot most years, and that's the entrance to turn number 3.
Yeah, turn 3. We see a car did definitely go off in turn 8 again. They come right back out. Green light's still on. They showed a little local yellow, but they did do a great job, Mark. I know that Savary Green and the series, they do what it takes to make it really good for these drivers. And I see a few patches around that area just to smooth it out, and it looks good through there as we watch on board with Bloomquist going through that area. His hands are much smoother. Car's not jumping in the air. Now the rest of the track just looks like our normal Toronto. A little bit bumpy. Rubber's starting to lay down right now. Now these drivers are challenging their brake zones. They're challenging how fast they can go through these corners without messing up. And right now is the time to do it. When we see guys like O'Ward and Rosenquist go off in turn 3, they're trying to get in there as deep as they possibly can and still make that corner. Sometimes you go over that limit. Well, that's what practice is for. It's time to do it now, not in the race.
Yeah, a couple of interesting scenarios that we talked about yesterday, Davey, as it pertains to turn number 3. First of all, if you go side by side through there, which we will see early on, and if we get a caution, we go back to green flag before they have a chance to sort themselves out. Typically, the driver to the inside is the one that has the advantage, and I know it's tough to grab a hold of that because your instincts tell you that if a guy's to your high side, he's got a bit of an advantage because he's got to run. But the problem is, once you climb that hill and you start to prepare for turn number 4, that turn 4 wall to driver's left sticks out just a little bit and it narrows up in a hurry. And as you suggest, if you don't have a half a car length, it's probably not going to end well for you if you're to the high side through there.
Yeah, that's right. We've seen it time and time again. And, drivers, when you feel you have a chance to get a position, man, you go for it. But that's when risk to reward is probably not the best down there in turn 3 going into turn 4, because if you're, like you just said, driver's left, that turn, it gets very tight, and that turn 4 wall really pokes out there. And the inside lane has an advantage unless you, like we talked about, you have to be up on that driver, up on that car to your right to where they can't squeeze you off in turn 4 and put you into the wall there.
That's really the closest thing that this course offers in terms of an elevation change. Does the car get light at all once you clear turn 4? I mean, you're going uphill there, and it's I think I've had the chance to see it personally. Had a chance to actually look at it, and I think it's a bit bigger of an elevation climb than I think if you're watching, on the video monitor. I don't think you get a full appreciation for just how quickly that thing goes uphill there.
Yeah, no, it does. It's rapidly uphill, but ironically, most of the times we crest the top of hills, cars do get light right there. But for whatever reason, that it really doesn't. You're hammered down. It doesn't. It has good grip and good traction. I think it's because of the low speed we're at, Mark. It's not a high speed area through there, so you're just getting off that hairpin basically, or that sharp right hander going up into 4, slow enough to where traction's good. And but it's what else is easy to do is overdrive turn 5. You'll see curbing to the left, and you want to be down on that curbing. There's a little space down there, and we'll see cars pile up down there in that turn 5 area, Mark. But it's easy to overdrive that just because the traction is so good coming off of 4. But such a short straightaway, you got to be careful there.
Let's go to Alex Wolf.
And the 3 pits, the Gallagher Chevrolet with Kyle Moyer. And Kyle, how is Scott liking the car today?
Yeah, it's okay. We're a little loose on the entry. I think if we get it tightened down a little bit there on the entry, we'll be fine. It's just then that completes our whole corner. We just got to get it all the way around the corner. So if we can fit the entry a little bit, I think we'll be fine.
There's been some talk about the repairs to the track. Overnight, has Scott said anything about how those are feeling?
Nah, still bumpy as it ever was, and good on traction some places, bad on others. So yeah, it's a typical Toronto.
When we see a car come into the pits like this during practice and we see the mirrors come out under the car, what sort of things are you looking at the checklist as they come off the track with that?
I just seen them bottoming and everything, make sure everything's okay.
We'll let you get back to work. That's Kyle Moyer in the 3 pit for Scott McLaughlin as he gets ready to head back out onto the track.
Yeah, always appreciate the insight from Kyle Moyer. Great conversation yesterday with Brian Barnhart. You know, Davey, we talked with Michael Young afterwards, and he's said he was really appreciative because it was a very busy time for that race team, and Brian gave Michael tremendous accessibility, and I don't think people really understand, you know, the layperson, how much is at stake and how much is going on during the course of a session. And certainly guys like Kyle and Brian Barnhart, those that are so receptive, Mike Shanks, another one, Mike Cole, Barry Wanzer, and the list goes on and on and on, because ultimately, Davey, what that does is that gives great insight to the fans, and I think those guys are aware of that.
Yeah, definitely. No, and experience pays off, and all the people you just named have such great experience and knowledge. Matter of fact, Mark, if we someday sit down and put an all-star team together, to put a complete team together from front to back, you know, some of those names are going to stand out, really highlighted over others, and boy, it'd be fun to do. But right now, I mean, having Barnhart and Moyer and a lot of these guys on your side, just to, you know, that's a feather in your cap. Michael, and they have so much knowledge, and they help win a lot of races, and it's a lot of behind the scenes for sure. But you go into engineering, you go into, you know, strategists. There's so many people that take, you know, to make these teams happen. And yeah, but I'd like to put an all-star team together someday because I may be unbeatable. 17
minutes remaining in this session. It's been a relatively uneventful one. We've had the obligatory runoffs with these guys getting to the ragged edge. 27 cars entered this weekend, and again, Andretti Autosport appears to be in pretty good shape. Colton Herta, Kyle Kirkwood are 1-2. Colton turned a lap at, 60.566. Then Kirkwood, then Award, Lundgaard, and Pillow, the top 5. Dixon, Newgarden, Erickson, Grosjean, and Power, the top 10. And, Davey, we discussed it a little bit yesterday. And make no mistake about it. It is, for all intents and purposes, and I know there are a lot of races left and a lot of points, especially over the next week or so, with the doubleheader weekend at Iowa Speedway. But it is essentially, at this point, Alex Pillow's title to lose. At least I think so anyway. So, with all of the uncertainty with the roster and how it might look, there's a couple of scenarios that we discussed yesterday we want to remind people of. There are 27 cars. There are 22 cars that benefit from the leader card program. That's significant. But there are drivers whose futures are not certain. Some of them are former 500 winners, and they are racing for their futures as well.
Yeah, it's a challenging year, and this series, even though there's more cars in this series than there's been for a long time, as you just mentioned, 27, it seems like it's getting more difficult for some of these drivers to continue on and keep rides because it's such, there's so many competitive drivers out there. As you said, 500 winners challenging for the ride, champions challenging to keep their ride. And so it's all about performance for these sponsors, and you have to be able to perform no matter what. I mean, that's what keeps, the bills paid, and that much keeps these cars on track, and that's all about wins. And everybody has to go for it. They have to put their 100% into this every time they're on racetrack. Doesn't matter if it's practice, qualifying, the race. You got to put 100% in. You got to be fast all the time. You got to show that you're hungry and that you want it, because if you're not, there's somebody standing right behind you waiting to get in that cockpit, Mark. And right now, and you need to be with the proper team. And some of these drivers don't feel they're with the proper team. They want to get with a team that they feel is, maybe a little more competitive and fits their style a little bit better. One thing I look at right now with Andretti's cars being so fast at this racetrack, yesterday, Mark, the fast time was a 60.8, and that was on the softer alternate tire. So right now they're already at a 60.56 with Colton Herta, 60.59 with his teammate Kirkwood on the standard tire. So that tells me when it comes time to qualify, they get the balance right in that softer sidewall tire or softer tire, the green sidewalls for the street courses. They may be able to, we keep thinking they may get in that 59-second bracket, but I think it could happen today.
And then if it rains, who knows?
Yeah, and then throw everything out the window, right? Everything out the window.
Jack Harvey.
Another hard hit.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant hit to that right rear. And, Davey, we oftentimes see contact like that and damage as it results to the suspension of that car. But let's face it, there are times when we see these cars make a fairly significant hit, and it's able to survive and not be damaged. Don't know if that's the case with Jack Harvey or not, but, boy, I know they seem that they're pretty delicate, but they're also at the same time strong, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think that's what Dallara put into play. It's where these cars, they can race. We can bump and we can touch and we can bang a wall a little bit. It doesn't really bend the suspension or the push rods most generally. But then when you see them in an accident, they rip apart because they absorb that energy to try to keep that driver safe, and things come off fairly easy. So I think it's the angle that you hit. If you hit sideways, just like Jack did, those cars are really, really strong. But if he was hit forward and run in the back of somebody, that's where that links and the A-arms and so forth are pretty weak. So, but like I say, they do it for a reason. Dallara, what a great company to have involved with IndyCar. All these chassis are Dallara chassis. So you either have a Honda or a Chevrolet engine. So it's pretty basic. You all have Firestone tires. So what that means is safety. And Dallara puts so much work into safety and making sure that these cars race properly, whether it's an aero package or how much downforce, the power they have, and all the manufacturers work together to try to put a good package on track. And right now, our package, I think, is just outstanding. I think we race well. I think that, it changes between street and road courses and short ovals and long ovals, but I just think Dallara's done a great job putting a package together with this series to make it really competitive.
Romain Grosjean headed back to pit road. He's currently 7th quick, and watching he and others from the in-car camera view that we have access to, Davey, the word smooth as glass not going to be tossed around much this week.
No, there's nowhere smooth at all unless you're sitting in your pit box stopped, and that's the only time your hands aren't drastically moving. And you watch, on board with Christian Lundgaard right now, just how much you have to fight that steering wheel. And as a driver, you don't notice it as much as we do watching it. I mean, you know that your hands are moving, but you're focused on what that car's doing, and you're looking ahead. Your hands are moving, but when you look at it from a camera angle, it's pretty amazing how much these hands are getting jerked around, and that just tells you kind of back to what Connor said. You have to be physically and mentally fit to be ready for these cars, and it's a long race. And he said that when he jumped in that Harding car a few years back, and last minute here at this track, and he got out afterwards and was absolutely whipped. Couldn't he couldn't even hardly walk out of that car. I remember that day. And it's these are true athletes, Mark, that there's a reason they spend 6-7 days in the gym and work super hard, and they're in simulators and they're working with engineers. It's a true job for sure.
They'll be thanking those trainers that they normally curse for all of that upper body work they've been doing as late. Let's go back to pit road, check in with Alex Wolff.
Well, as we get into the closing minutes of this session, saw Colton Herta top of the charts, but still tuning on that 26 car. He's coming back in after making a run where they made a rear damper change. And right now I'm in the number 30 pit for Jack Harvey for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing after he tagged the wall, and they're really giving that right rear corner of the car a once-over. 3 crew members around it, one crouched right next to the right rear. Also had a crew member on his knees taking a look, crouched down as well. So they're looking over that 30 car to see if there's any kind of damage after he hit the wall a little bit earlier.
Davey, it looks like the I'm looking at the top 20. The top 10. I think separated by a second? Maybe the top 15 separated by a second.
That's right.
That qualifying's going to be crazy.
It's going to be, and it even gets tighter when it comes time to qualify. That's where everybody, they really lay it out. They all have the softer tires on, the alternate tire. But you're right, it's going to be crazy. A lot of times we'll see, especially on the ovals, we'll see the entire field within, a half a second, maybe 3/4 at the most. But here, I expect the entire field, majority of them, the top 20, to be within that 1 second barrier. And then, the last few may be a little bit over that. But that, you just think about how a short amount of time that is and how many cars are stacked in that area. That tells you why you want to be towards the front of this qualifying field, not the back, because when you don't have that much speed over the guy in front of you, it really makes it hard to pass.
Yeah, and as competitive as it is, as we said, once upon a time, there were always those that were very, very happy to just simply make it into the round of 12. But I think those days are long gone. I think especially with the tight confines here at Toronto, I don't think there's any doubt you want to get in the Fast Six.
Yeah, you want to be in the Fast Six, and I think that the winner's going to come out of that Fast Six. Now, one thing that Toronto does bring is a small window of strategy. I mean, things could happen. We're just talking rain. There's potential rain and some different things that are going to maybe happen over the weekend. But pretty straightforward race, and I think the farther you start forward, the better opportunity you have to win this race. And I think the record book shows that. 85
laps, Davey. Can people get cute with their pit strategy, or is this a rock solid 2-stopper, 3-stopper? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that what I would do is I would run a 2-stopper if you're going to win this race from the front and where you're in position. But if early yellow comes out and there's opportunity for some of these drivers to get on a little bit of a different fuel strategy, a little bit different tire strategy to keep some fresher tires on there, and maybe some clean racetrack to where they can make up a lot of time where they're not stuck in traffic. You can do a 3-stopper and it can benefit you, but as we just talked about, starting up front in that first 3 rows is going to be a huge advantage, and I think it's going to be a pretty straight up 2-stopper.
I am reminded of places like Detroit and others that we've been that offer long straightaways, like that long back straightaway in Lakeshore Boulevard. As the weekend progresses, Davey, certainly not as big of a concern in practice or qualifying, but marbles eventually on race day, if it's dry, marbles will be an issue because this thing gets plenty dirty.
Yeah, and you've already probably seen it just on our monitors right now. I'll go out later on and really look at the offline, how much rubber's out there, but just on our monitors, it's just from this one session that's we've only been on track 50 minutes, not even 1 hour yet, and I tell you, there's a lot of marbles. I noticed that right off, and they're not running the alternate tire. This is the standard tire, which is a little bit stronger. Shouldn't leave as many marbles as we normally do, or as the softer compound tire. So pretty surprising how many marbles are offline right now. It's early on in this practice session.
Scott Dixon is currently 8th. Quick, Alex Wolf.
And in these closing about 7.5 minutes, I think they're going to try to improve on that as they've taken some shocks back over the pit wall that were on the PNC Bank Honda. They're putting new ones on, really paying attention with the front cover off to the dampers there with the shocks and springs. So the 4-time defending champion on the streets of Toronto, Scott Dixon, still fine-tuning that Chip Ganassi racing machine.
7 minutes remaining, as Alex just alluded to. Colton Herta continues P1, 60.5. Kirkwood is a 65.97, and we've got a car in the wall, and that is the 6th car of Felix Rosenqvist, Davey.
Just can't catch a break. We continue to talk about Felix and how fast he is. It's just the brakes haven't been following his way. He sits P14 right now. That's that turn 5 we were talking about. That's really easy to overshoot. We haven't seen any incidents yet until now. But coming off that turn 4, that's really tight. We talk, Mark, that short straightaway. you have to get it right. It's really easy to overdrive that corner, and the result of overdriving that corner is the wall. And we'll see a little replay right here. He makes it through 3, fine. Goes through 4, has on the gas. Rubber's really starting to go. Just overdrive. Simple as we just talked about. Just went in a little bit too hot. Misses the tire barrier, unfortunately, right into the hard wall. But that's we talked about that earlier. Just overdriving 5 is pretty easy to do because of good grip coming off of 4.
It looks as though, from what we've seen, the fast way around there, Davey, is after you clear turn 4 to try to get high to driver's right and then get the left sides almost up on that red and white curbing to driver's left. That seems to be the preferred line through that turn, and he was nowhere close to that.
Yeah, that's right. That is the preferred line. You want to just touch that left side curbing, as you said, and man, if you miss it, because there's no rubber up high. It's not like a 2-lane corner through there, so you have to be on the bottom. You have to turn in there, and it looked like when he came up there, just so much speed, got on the brake, the back end slid out just a little bit, couldn't get down there, and like I say, into the hard concrete. By the way, he missed the tire barriers by about 15 feet. Would have been nice to hit tires and the cushion that hit just a little bit, and maybe save some parts in that car. But I'll tell you, the right side suspension definitely got destroyed for sure.
He is currently 13th in points, Davey, and he is one of those guys whose future, I think, is under some question. I mean, nobody knows where he's going to be driving or with who yet next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's definitely on the hot seat. He was on the hot seat last year, and with all the rumor of Palou maybe going to McLaren, that would definitely probably push Felix out of the program. But as we talk about Palou, is he going to Formula One or is he coming to IndyCar? I mean, there's a lot of open doors and a lot of talk that hasn't been answered yet on where all these drivers are going to go. But right now, he's definitely one of those drivers that shows speed, shows promise, good guy, and just a lot of small mistakes. Rather, not all of them his fault either. I'll have to say some of them, like today, yes, he overshot that corner. Definitely, you got to lay that on him. But those have to stop. He needs to really start winning a lot of races and show that this McLaren team that they want to keep him, and there's a reason they want to keep him. That's because he's winning races and can win championships. So right now, just going through a tough stretch, and back, like you said, in the points championship, he's fighting to try to get in that top 10.
Yeah, it's interesting to note, Davey, he is one of those guys that, quite frankly, through practice and qualifying, typically things go fairly well for Felix Rosenqvist. The issues seem to come with the ability to maybe close the deal. I mean, his average starting position, Davey, is 7th, but his average finish is 15th.
Yeah, and I see that with several drivers. We talked about that in the past is, you have to, it's not easy. I mean, we continue to talk about how this series is not easy. It's very difficult for these drivers to stay mentally and physically focused. And I think it seems like at the end of these events that he just loses some focus, just loses a little concentration, just doesn't, right at the end, isn't closing the deal. And I don't know what we could blame that on or what we could attribute that to, but it just seems... you look at the history book, and that's kind of the stature of what's happened with Rosenqvist. He just, at the end of these races, just things go bad.
So the clock is stopped because, again, there's a 1-hour window here to get the 45 minutes in. So they've got the car on the hook getting ready to get it off the track, and they'll have 7 minutes time for a couple of flyers before we go checkers on this session. While we have a moment, let's go back to pit road and check in with Joel Sebastianelli.
Yeah, just to confirm what Davey Hamilton said a moment ago about the right side, the team was having a conversation with Felix Rosenqvist about how much damage there was. They had not seen what happened, and they watched the replay along with everybody else while talking to him and saw where he hit, missing those tires ever so slightly. You could hear and see the dejection, so they've got that car on the hook. Felix is obviously out, and they're heading back to the paddock area.
Yeah, we saw him get out of the race car and climbed into the safety vehicle, and he'll get the ride back to the paddock. And I guess if there's a positive, Davey, at least from all intents and purposes, it didn't look as though that the damage was all that extreme to that car, mainly bolt-on stuff, and it should be a fairly easy repair, and they've got a pretty decent window to get those repairs made, Davey, because we don't qualify until almost 3 o'clock this afternoon.
That's right. There's about 2.5, 3 hours actually between now and qualifying, so, they'll definitely get the car fixed in good shape. Didn't look like any body work, which is is always good too. These teams spend so much time on body fits, making sure that aerodynamically that they're really fit well, and the underwings and all the side pods, I think, are connected properly to meet tech. So hopefully it didn't hurt that, and it's just literally some A-arms and some uprights and things like that.
So yesterday, when we wrapped up the session, it was Kirkwood, Grosjean, Rosenquist, Herta, McLaughlin, Ericsson, Rossi, Padua, Ward, Joseph Newgarden, and Will Powers were a minute away from green. Let's compare that now. The top 10 as we stand now with 7 minutes remaining in this session. It's Herta, then Kirkwood, Ericsson, Palou, Award, Lundgaard, Grosjean, Dixon, Newgarden, and Callum Ilott, the top 10. Let's go ahead and give you the rest of the field as they run in this session. Will Power is 11th quick. Rahal is 12th quick. McLaughlin 13th. Rosenquist 14th. 15th is Harvey. 16th Ferrucci. 17th Malukas. 18th is Armstrong. 19th Castroneves. 20th DeFrancesco. Peterson is 21st. VK 22nd. Canapino 23rd. Hunter Ray 24th. Rossi 25th. Bloomquist 26th. And Stingray Robb is currently 27th quick. 7:07 remaining as the green flag flies. Davey getting a peek at Alex Palou as he and Scott Dixner among those exiting pit road with 7 minutes remaining. We, I guess that we mentioned yesterday that the paint scheme that he's running this weekend is familiar to that iconic Craco paint scheme from days gone by. It's what it kind of reminds you of, and we saw a lot of references to that on social media. A lot of folks are of the same mindset.
Yeah, no kidding. My buddy of mine just sent me a Craco car stereo hat, a picture of a Craco hat that he just sent me. So, yeah, definitely has that look, and it brings back some long-time memories. A lot of people drove that Craco car. It was around a long time. It was always a fun one to watch with so many different drivers. And right now, if it was 7 to go, you think these drivers, it's race time. I mean, they're wheel-to-wheel going down through what we just talked about, turn 3, turn 4, and they're into turn 5 right now, all kind of getting stacked up. And it seems like that's what happens a little bit. The timeline is right off of turn 8 going into turn 9, and they all slow down and then try to spread out to where they can cross that timeline pretty much single file to where they can get a good run going. And right now it seems like all cars leave at one time, but it seems like they're trying to spread out to give each other a little bit of track time.
If you're not in the first couple of pit boxes, would conventional wisdom tell you to maybe let all of those go out there and get themselves sorted out, and then maybe you wait a second or two before you leave pit road?
Well, yeah, it's not the race. So absolutely, as we watch Colton Herta go off in turn 1 right off the bat, he was one of the first ones out. Now he's going to have to merge in. It's going to be a little bit difficult for him to merge in with all the cars coming around. As he does, he gets in just barely squeezes between a few drivers. But yeah, just wait a little bit. Just wait, and so you don't have to get all stacked up and risk somebody running into you or running into somebody else. So and we see right now a little replay of Colton Herta locks that right front up, a little bumpy going down in turn 1. He gets off the brakes. I'm not even going to try it. There's a nice runoff area how that works as you go through the arch down there in turn 1 and merge back on in turn 2. So a nice little runoff area for these drivers.
Yeah, it's interesting to note, Davey, that based upon the successes in qualifying for from a week ago, guys like Colton Herta, Graham Rahal, Lundgaard, let's see, Alex Palou, Will Power, Scott Dixon, and even Joseph Newgarden. Those guys are the fortunate ones when it comes to pitting, Davey, because they have the first 7 pit boxes, and that's going to make for a much cleaner exit and a little less traffic to worry about if they have to make green flag stops.
That's right, and we talked about pits and how difficult this pit lane is. It's like a snake, and it's not easy to get these cars in and out of pit road with the pit boxes the way they are. So it's something to watch throughout the race. But you're right; those first 4 or 5, they have the best. They're straight. You gotta snake through the pits to get to them. But once you're there, it's a nice straight in and out of your box, and I think that's going to be important when it comes race time.
Colton Herta continues P1, then Kirkwood, Ericsson, Palou, and O'Ward the top 5. Lundgaard, Grosjean, Dixon, Newgarden, and Ilott the top 10. Power, Rahal, McLaughlin, Rosenquist, and Harvey through 15th, then Ferrucci, then Malukas, then Armstrong, Castroneves, and DeFrancesco. 21st is Peterson, 22nd is VK, Canapino is 23rd, Hunter Ray is 24th, Rossi is 25th, 26th Stingray Robb, and Tom Bloomquist subbing for Simon Pagenaud this weekend, 27th quick. Davey, interesting to see Alexander Rossi running in the 25th position. He's completed 24 laps in this session.
Yeah, it looked really good yesterday. Had a lot of speed, but something just not meshing right for him. They may be trying something off, kind of off pace just a little bit, just try something different. But, I was surprised seeing Rob down there when his teammates right now are 5th, and Rosenquist was 14th before he had some contact with the wall. You look at some of these other drivers still struggling, Malukas, Armstrong. Armstrong a little surprising. I thought he might be a little bit better here, but Castro Neves, Di Francesco, Peterson, VK, all towards the bottom of these charts still. But I have to say one that struggled yesterday a lot, and that was that AJ Foyt car of Ferrucci. I think he found himself in 26th yesterday.
Right.
He now finds himself in 16th. Found a little speed out of that car right behind Harvey, and he's trying to crack into that top 15 right now.
Well, what's interesting though is when you're talking multi-car teams, you look at a Rossi. He's a little bit back in the field, and I guess the bottom line is this. I mean, if you all are in agreement in terms of what the approach will be once you establish what you feel good about in terms of your qualifying car, is there a possibility that some of these guys that we see from, say, 15th on back might simply at this point be working on race setup because their teammates are working on the qualifying setup, and that's a setup they're comfortable putting on their car before we go qualifying later today?
Yeah, I mean, oh man, I'm just not to interrupt, but these drivers are still going slow in the timeline. It's a horrible situation that needs to be fixed. Will Power, he's up to speed. He comes around the corner, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of cars in front of him, and he almost runs into the back of them. I mean, they're blocking each other. VK is blocking off Canapino, and Canapino's blocking off Stingray Robb. Just, way too late in the session to be slowing down so much for that timeline. And, I don't know. It seems like an easy way to fix that, and that is back in the day, when you lift the pits, it's gas down and you go for it. And,
right.
And I think that's what needs to start happening. I mean, we see Will Power, literally just missing, almost a huge collision going by 4 guys in between turns 7 and 8, which is not a lot of room right there. But boy, that was a scary looking thing right there.
Yeah, and if Canapino had been going anywhere close to the normal preferred pace on this racetrack, there would have been a collision between he and PK.
Oh yeah, no question about it. I mean, they're barely island around there, and like I say, once you go, you got to get going, and that's something that as a race director, I would definitely be talking to these teams and drivers because we see it time and time again. Matter of fact, you remember St. Petersburg last year where Sato comes around the corner. I mean, not Sato, but Grosjean comes around the corner. All of a sudden, they're all stopped going down into that left-hander and Dan Weldon Boulevard, and he smashes in the back of Sato, and just not expecting cars to it's green flag, not expecting them to be creeping around, and they're doing it again. Nobody can get a full lap in because everybody stops for this timeline. Pretty crazy right now. We're on board with Bloomquist, and he's barely moving. I mean, literally, when I say barely moving, I mean he's almost to a complete stop. The cars are just stacked up, and as we see, one of the cars going around all of them, just man, what a pretty unorganized right now.
Yeah, it's a pretty messy close to the session for sure. And that was Armstrong that was working his way around about 5 cars to the outside, the rookie Marcus Armstrong. Let's go back and pick up that conversation we've started this segment with Davey about sometimes when we see drivers maybe at the rear, that they may be working on something different than their teammates, knowing that qualifying setup will be put on their car once it's time to go qualify.
Yeah, that's right. And you have to a lot of times. And the good news this far in the season, you kind of know what works for you and your teammate, what you like, what you don't like. And right now, if you're struggling, for example, Ferrucci found that speed in 16th, and his teammate right now, Peterson, is in that 21st spot. They had not a huge gap, but sure they'll go talk to each other and just see, what they're doing, and try to get something common. Right now, Bloomquist, he's still just trying to get laps, and right now it's not helping him with everybody slowing down so much going into the timeline. Rossi that's another driver. He can definitely go in and see Pato, telemetry, and Rosenquist and see where they're fast, where they're not. He'll pick up on that, not too worried about him. But a lot of these teams definitely will have to work on their teammate to see if they can be a little quicker.
Conversation yesterday, Davey, Colton heard a very matter of fact about the frustration that he feels with some of the self-inflicted wounds that he has suffered that has hampered his chances to win a championship. 20th at St. Petersburg, 14th at Barber. He finished 11th in Detroit and finished 11th after starting on pole at Mid-Ohio after that pit road speed penalty. The average start of 10th, average finish of 10th, and it looks like he might have the jaw locked because he's P1 now as the checkered flag flies on this session.
Well, and a few races ago, we all talked off air going, where's Colton at? that's not the Colton that we know. That we know what he could do, what we expect out of Colton, and all of a sudden that very race sits on the pole. He has a lot of speed. That was at Road America, dominates the race, and then they make one. His team makes a small mistake. Pits him one lap too early, and he has to save fuel. Ends up fifth. He goes to the very next race, sets it on the pole again. He makes a small mistake coming in pit lane, just as But I think the speeds. But I think that team's really found its footing. I think that obviously we know what kind of driver Colton is and how good he is, and that team as well. And they're going to mesh together. Now you got another thing that Juan Colton. He's had 3 race strategists this year so far. He's on his 3rd one. Rob Edwards on that stand now. So I think obviously it's going to stay the same for the rest of this year. And I think that Colton's going to find his footing and make sure that he's a contender week in, week out for the rest of the season.
And if you're a short track USAC fan and you had access to the video that we just saw, it looked like that Gamers machine was taking on the role of a push truck when he cleared the timing line with Bloomquist running in front of him.
Yeah, it was just that last 7 minutes was pretty, just very unorganized. Very, I think that drivers need to look at themselves and go, we just need to all gas it up and deal with what we have to deal with. Maybe leave the pit. There's enough. This track's short. There's no question about it. It's short, but you can spread yourself out, no problem when it gets time to.
Marcus Ericsson was 3rd quick after the end of the session. Alex?
3rd quick in that session, Marcus. And first off, the adjustments that they made to the track overnight, did it feel better, worse, the same for the 8 car?
The same, to be honest. It's still bumpy and tricky out there, but that's how it's supposed to be, in my opinion. So I enjoy it. It's a difficult track, and it creates a quite big challenge for drivers and teams. And like I said, I enjoy that challenge.
Tight action here on the streets of Toronto. Of course, last street race in Detroit that Saturday morning. There's a lot of people having trouble finding a clean lap to get ready for qualifying. We're able to get a clean lap for the Husky Ice Spritz Honda today.
We got some clean running there in the middle of the session, and then end of the session it always gets really a lot of traffic these days with all the big car counts that we have and short lap distance. So we knew that going in, so we tried to get most of our running done. When it was 15 minutes ago, we didn't have that many things left on our program, so that was good. Car feels really good. The number 8 car is definitely hooked up for qualifying.
That's Marcus Ericsson getting set to go qualifying a little bit later today.